Less than a dozen days before draft day, and we run down the top 10 draft picks in Cowboys history. There's a current Cowboy on the list. Who might that be? And how about drafting a wide receiver that's being compared to Dez Bryant? It's next on the Blitz, your Dallas Cowboys report.
Pops out to the right, breaks a tackle. They blitz it. Prescott throws it down the right side for Lamb. Caught it! Back to throw, rush, sacked by Parsons. Heaves it deep down the left side for Gallup. He's got it. Touchdown!
Things are getting exciting here at the Star in Frisco. Bill Jones along with Kyle Yeomans inside the studios here, the home of the Dallas Cowboys, where we are counting down the days to the NFL draft, which gets started on Thursday, April 28th. And the Big Green Notebook, it is filling up fast, Kyle.
Nice.
I know you've been on this for a long time with the Draft Guide and Star Magazine, but it's almost here.
See, and I always respect the Big Green Scouting Notebook because it's the old-fashioned, it's the hand, the pen to paper. I'm more digital with all mine, so luckily it's condensed a little bit. I don't have my laptop up here, but I've got my spreadsheet, and it's filling up quickly as well.
Which brings us to, it's a great segue into our first topic of the day, business being made around here. I'm going old school with the notebook. All right, he's a more digital guy. How about blockchain.com, now partnering with the Cowboys, the official digital asset platform of the Cowboys?
How about that? You look at blockchain, it's a great place to sell, buy, even create cryptocurrency. The new world of cryptocurrencies taking over as we know it. Of course, 2020, 21 really allowed for that to come to the mainstream media and really people starting to get a grasp. Are you going to buy and sell some crypto?
Once I figure it out.
From blockchain?
and once I have some money to do that, I'll do that.
Hey, that sounds great.
Okay, well, let's get into the draft. And when you look at questions that a lot of Cowboys fans have going into the draft, what questions do you have going into the draft?
You know, there's three questions that really come to mind early on with this Cowboys team, and there could be more than three questions. But I'm going to start things off with, has the front office done enough to take best player available? That's really been the case the last 2 years. They've done a great job of filling the holes throughout the offseason to allow the pick of CeeDee Lamb in 2020, to allow the pick of Micah Parsons in 2021. Have they done that this year? You still look at this active roster and you see plenty of holes at interior offensive line, wide receiver, even on the defensive side at edge rusher, defensive tackle. There are question marks at linebacker. Secondary really seems like the one spot there that you feel good about. Have the Cowboys done enough to set themselves up for success so that way if the right player falls to them on draft night, they're able to take them at pick number 24, 56, 88, and so on and so forth?
Well, one of those positions, the interior offensive line, and it's very interesting when you look at, I think you can look at the whole offensive line, and I could see the Cowboys taking a tackle who might start off as a guard, and that would apply to one of your main questions right there.
Absolutely. How much confidence do they have in that offensive line? Do they feel like Connor McGovern can go in and step in at the left guard spot if they elect to go away from an offensive guard in the first round of the playoffs? They had a 1-2-1 grade, an early second-round grade on him when they drafted him out of Penn State back in 2019. They drafted him in the third round. They had a second-round grade on him. However, it was a different coaching staff. Same sort of deal with Tyler Biadasz. It was a different offensive coordinator that drafted Biadasz. He's at the center position. He's entering his third year in the league. He was just a fourth-round pick, but he's really seen a ton of starting snaps. How confident are they in those two guys that they could be starters if the Cowboys elect to go and address some of these other needs moving forward?
You know, coming out of the pandemic, this might be the deepest draft in the history of the league, really. And you look at the wide receiver position, and it is as deep as any position in this draft, don't you think? And the Cowboys have a definite need at wide receiver.
Yeah, no more Amari Cooper, no more Cedric Wilson, Malik Turner, even on the back end of that depth chart now off and to the San Francisco 49ers. So what do they do to fill in the wide receiver void? You don't necessarily need to go out and get a first-round pick. We talked about that a couple weeks in a row here on the Blitz. Maybe it is a Treylon Burks. Maybe it is a top guy like a Chris Olave or a Drake London, if the Cowboys feel good enough in other spots to where they can go draft a wide receiver. The most likely is are they able to go and get one at the back end of the draft? I don't think it's a massive need for the Cowboys. It's more of a want to have another big-time playmaker to put next to Michael Gallup and to CeeDee Lamb, but I think it's a need to fill in the backside of that depth chart later on.
And, of course, Michael Gallup was a third-round draft pick himself. We're just getting started on this edition of The Blitz. Let's explore those prospects at offensive tackle when we come back.
The Blitz is brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, and by the Dallas Cowboys Football Club. This segment is brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys.
Welcome back to the Blitz. Bill Jones along with Kyle Yeomans. You know what? The Cowboys played a game today. They could start Tyron Smith at left offensive tackle, Terrence Steele at right offensive tackle. However, there is a need for offensive tackles, whether it be this year or down the road. Tyron, yeah, he's still young for as long as he's been in the league because he came in at the age 20. But he's getting a little long in the tooth there a little bit. Terrence Steele, of course, an undrafted guy. Let's look at the tackles. There's some really good tackles at the top of this draft, and maybe there's a couple of tackles that might fall down to where the Cowboys pick at number 24 in the first round. First day offensive tackle, what are you looking at?
Yeah, you're right. You mentioned the guys at the top of the list, and those are the guys that would be most likely to replace Tyron Smith if it were a massive need for the Cowboys, say if Tyron Smith was not available for 2022. These guys might be in the conversation. That's Ike Ekwonu out of NC State. Then you've got Evan Neal out of Alabama. And then you go into Charles Cross out of Mississippi State. He's an interesting case. There are some rumors, some smoke where there might be fire. We don't really know. It's lying season around the NFL draft. He may be one of those guys that could be slipping a little bit. And the Cowboys doing their homework on Charles Cross. They brought him in as a 30 visit, somebody that they are doing some research on a little bit more so. But those guys are most likely out of reach for the Cowboys at pick number 24. Maybe they want to make a move, go up and get somebody. However, there are two names that really keep kind of being pigeonholed into that 24th spot, and that's Bernard Ryman out of Central Michigan, and then you turn around with Trevor Penning out of Northern Iowa. Two very stout guys that come from different backgrounds. Penning is this extra bully, this physical mentality, a guy who is a 6'7", massive humanity on the outside of that line. He was a Senior Bowl product as well. With Ryman, he was a tight end who transitioned to the offensive tackle role halfway through his collegiate career. So he's been putting on 60 pounds over the last 3 years. He still has some room to grow, but he has that high ceiling that teams could be very much so interested in. If the Cowboys wanted to take a pick at a tackle at 24, it would probably be one of those two guys.
And Trevor Penning out of Northern Iowa, here's a guy that plays with a nasty mentality.
Yes,
and even though he's played offensive tackle, he could be a guy who you could play his first year maybe at guard and then move him out to tackle, getting your best 5 offensive linemen on the field. All right, as you move into the second day of the draft, who are some guys that the Cowboys might be looking at there?
You know, and it's interesting because you brought up the Penning versatility. There are plenty of guys in this draft that could have that same sort of versatility. One name in the second round is Darian Kennard out of Kentucky. Played offensive tackle and guard during his time in the SEC, was one of the more feared run blockers in the entire NFL. He has that guard tackle flex, could play at the right tackle spot day one, or he could be your starting left guard day one, depending on where he fits best in whatever offense ends up drafting him. Same thing with Tulsa offensive tackle Tyler Smith, somebody who has been kind of mocked around that first round role, a very high ceiling, but still a very much so developmental player that will be a starter in the NFL or should be a starter in the NFL at some point along the lines. However, he's not one of those day one guys. If we want to look to the back end, though, this is where I think the Cowboys could certainly see a couple of draft picks allocated toward the tackle position. Cade Mays, experienced Georgia transfer, finished his career off at the University of Tennessee, played guard, played tackle, but he was fantastic as a tackle with the Tennessee Volunteers. Somebody that they brought in for an interview at the Combine. They've done their homework on him at the Senior Bowl, was one of the better players, had one of the better performances throughout his time in the Senior Bowl. And then how about Texas product out of UTSA, Spencer Burford, who paved the way for Sincere McCormick and the Roadrunners defense. Jeff Traylor and company down in San Antonio rave about what Spencer Burford did for that UTSA offense. He was a phenomenal player and somebody I think the Cowboys Cowboys could get maybe on day 3 if they elected to go that long, because he's a developmental player and could provide some depth on that offensive line.
But you look at the Cowboys' needs on the offensive line. Of course, Connor Williams has now moved on to the Miami Dolphins, and you've got Lyle Collins, who's now a member of the Cincinnati Bengals, and your swing tackle Ty Nsekhe as well. There are 3 roster spots basically that haven't been filled, and you might see all 3 of those spots get filled in this draft.
You're exactly
right. Big of a need.
Because they're going to go along the way, and they did it last year with guys like Mac Farniok and Josh Ball, which, by the way, Josh Ball at this very moment is probably your swing tackle if you're the Dallas Cowboys. So expect them to make some moves, maybe not all in the draft. They may have to go and find a veteran in free agency and maybe work a couple guys out there. But I think the Cowboys aren't necessarily done yet with the tackle position.
They need to make a great draft pick, or maybe 2 great draft picks on that offensive line. So how about the top 10 draft picks in Cowboys history? We've got a list from Nick Eatman when we come back.
This segment was brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys.
All right, I've been waiting for this. Who are the top 10 draft picks in Cowboys history? We have a list from Nick Eatman, and Kyle Yeomans has Nick with him now.
How's it going, everybody? Nick Eatman, Kyle Yeomans with you. The draft is just a couple weeks away. And, of course, Cowboys have had some fantastic draft picks in their history. We're going to take a look at the top 10 draft picks in Cowboys franchise history, powered by Reliant. Nick Eatman, you get to make the list. So start us off at number 10.
All right, number 10, it comes with a heavy heart here just recently. The big cat, Rayfield Wright, passed away, but will never be forgotten. He was a guy that came out of Fort Valley State in the 7th round, and they didn't know what to do with him. A tight end, defensive end, they ended up making him an offensive tackle. He played 13 seasons with the Cowboys. The first player, offensive lineman, to go into the Hall of Fame for the Cowboys. Was just a great player. So, to get him from a small school, late round like that, that was certainly a big pick. All right, let's go. Number 9. Troy Aikman hasn't been number 9 on any list ever in his life. If I was thinking about this clearly, he should have been probably number 8. But I put him number 9. In 1989, they had to get a top home run pick with the number 1 pick. They needed a quarterback. They got Troy Aikman. Some people say it was an easy pick, but it was also a slam dunk and a home run at that. And Troy Aikman, led this team in the 90s. So easy pick there. Number 8, Jason Witten. Get a guy in the 3rd round that was going to miss 1 game in his whole 17-year career. I mean, what a great find. I mean, this guy was he was a blocking tight end. He was a pass-catching tight end more than anything. Did it all, and he played just about every snap. Just a great player for those Cowboys teams. All right, number 7. Bullet Bob Hayes. They got him in the 1964 draft, one of the greatest draft classes in the history of the league. They didn't know what to do with him. I mean, he could run. Could he play football? Yeah, he could play football. He ended up changing the game there. So certainly Bob Hayes gets on this list.
So through the first couple names on this list, you're looking at value, but you're also looking at production back and forth. And Bullet Bob Hayes was the value. He ended up making that 64 class one of the best of all time. Stay tuned for a video involving that as well later on. Now, what about recent memory? I haven't heard a whole lot of names that are active Cowboys. Anybody like that on the list?
Yeah, maybe the starting quarterback here, Dak Prescott. Yeah, compensatory 4th-round pick. You get Dak Prescott. He comes right in, has to start when Tony Romo was injured, and the rest is history. And we're still figuring that out, just how great this pick is going to be. But there's something about being the face of the franchise of the Dallas Cowboys, and to get that guy in the 4th round, that was an outstanding pick. Okay, also face of the franchise. How about Mr. Cowboy, Bob Lilly? He goes in at number 5 on the list. Again, all this is going to seem kind of weird because these guys are number 1 in many people's hearts. Bob Lilly, the first great Cowboy player. They got him in 1961. He gets number 5 on the list. How about Emmitt Smith, number 4? 1990 draft, they moved up. They wanted defensive guys. But, hey, this Emmitt Smith still sitting here. Let's go get him. He ends up being one of the best running backs in the history of the game and the all-time leading rusher. Number 3, 1985, the Cowboys took a flyer. Thought maybe the USFL, the other football league, would fold, and if so, let's get the best player. They did. They got Herschel Walker. He ended up playing the next few years. Then they traded him for a bunch of picks and ended up kind of getting the dynasty in order there. Herschel Walker, what a great value for him. And then number 2, how about a guy from Sonoma State, Larry Allen? They got him in the 2nd round, also a compensatory pick. Ends up being arguably the greatest guard in the history of the NFL.
Man, you look at some of the greats amongst this Cowboys organization. You think of some of the bargain deals they got these guys for throughout their draft history. What about the bargain of getting a guy and then he goes away and then he comes back and then, oh, wait, he's at the top of the list, right?
Right. Remember that 1964 draft I was talking about? Roger Staubach, 10th round. He's the Heisman Trophy winner. They know he can play, but he's going to go to the Navy. He's going to be gone for a little bit. When he comes back, let's see what he is. Well, he ends up being one of the best quarterbacks in the history of the NFL and led the Cowboys in the 1970s, the Super Bowls. They won a couple. He was a Super Bowl MVP as well. I think he's the greatest draft pick in the history of the Cowboys.
And some would argue the greatest player in the history of the Cowboys, and they did it late in the draft. They had him go away to the Navy, served our country, and then he comes back, and he's the captain of America's team. He's Nick Eatman. I'm Kyle Yeomans. That does it for Power Rankings. Top 10 draft picks in Cowboys history, powered by Reliant. Bill?
Oh, I love that list. Or maybe you don't love that list. Shout at Nick Eatman. He's on Twitter at Nick Eatman. And up next, here on The Blitz, how about a wide receiver from Arkansas, drafted by the Cowboys? It could happen. Welcome back to The Blitz. There could be as many as 7 wide receivers taken in the first round of this NFL draft. And Britt Johnson takes a look at one of those prospects.
Thanks so much, Bill. Britt Johnson here. Arkansas standout Treylon Burks is what some would call a renaissance man on the football field. Not only is he a physical player, but he can be used in multiple positions from outside receiver, inside receiver, and even running back. And if you thought that was impressive, well, the guy has some run blocking skills to add to that.
I would say at Arkansas, Coach Pittman, he stressed, obviously he was an offensive line coach before head coach. So blocking was a big thing for us. We did that every week at the beginning of the week, worked on blocking, and run block was very important in that program.
Some are more visual, so for comparison's sake, some people have compared him to receiver A.J. Brown.
Yes, sir. There's some comparisons in that just by body structure, how big we are, how fast we are. And yes, sir, I've watched him along the way, along my college career, and, there's a little bit of comparisons in that. I've watched a lot of Deebo Samuel just by, the way that he plays running back, plays inside, plays outside, multi-player person, athlete. And, that's what I try to mimic my game after all.
Hey, we will take a guy like Deebo Samuel as well. At 6'3", 225 pounds, Treylon Burks ran a 4.55 in this year's combine and is noted as being smooth for his size when gliding through space and has an arm as stiff as the Heisman Trophy. Or so I've heard. Back to you guys.
All right, thanks, Britt. And Kyle, I wonder where we might be able to find out some more about Treylon Burks and other prospects in this draft.
I've got you completely covered.
Oh,
How about this? He's actually on the cover of our Dallas Star Magazine draft guide. There he is up in the top right-hand corner. He's making a one-handed snag. I mean, he was compared to Dez Bryant a couple of times, but this looks like Odell Beckham Jr. with the grab. I'll read straight out of my scouting report from the draft magazine. Burks is going to be a problem at the next level. Thick and lengthy aren't normally the terms used to describe a receiver that, in his special case, can move as well as he does. He's a fantastic player. He's going to provide a couple of different areas to whatever offense is lucky enough to draft him. He can be used in the backfield. He can be used in the slot. And, oh, yeah, he can be on the outside. He can go up and get the football. And really a phenomenal player. You can check out him along with all those other receivers that could be first-round picks in our Dallas Star Magazine draft guide.
Cowboys have the 24th pick. Dez Bryant went about that pick.
24th.
Yeah,
yes,
so maybe Treylon Burks as well.
Could be.
Who needs Mel Kiper when you got Kyle Yeomans? All right, the official 2022 draft guide is available for your perusal, and we wrap up the Blitz in just a moment.
The Blitz was brought to you by AT&T, official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, and by the Dallas Cowboys Football Club.
Final minute of the Blitz, and it's almost party time. Right, Kyle?
Absolutely. The Cowboys draft party at the Star presented by Miller Lite. Go out to the Tostitos Championship Plaza, all those festivities. And it's not just on night one, it's all the way throughout the weekend. They have restaurant night, they have the draft day 5K. It is a blast up at the Star in Frisco. Plenty to do for all the family members if they want to be a part of this NFL draft coverage.
All right, first round of the draft a week from Thursday, April 28th, and it runs through Saturday. For Kyle Yeomans, I'm Bill Jones. We appreciate you joining us here on The Blitz. And next week, it's our annual mock draft.